Hey everyone, today we're going to be talking about barrel lengths and what effect it has when you're doing distance shooting. So I've got some data here that I've accumulated, and I think this video might help you decide, like how long of a barrel do you want to use? Is it worth having a longer barrel to shoot further distances? Or are you better off just using a shorter barrel, and is it good enough? What I did here is we're going to look at the 7.5 inch, 11.5 inch, 16 inch, and 18 inch AR-15s, and we're going to be looking at the 62 grain green tip. Again, the reason why we're looking at a 62 grain green tip is because I already had the velocity numbers in my book that I had recorded at some point. So it was easy to just pull out the numbers and throw them on here. Okay, so it was just a convenience. For 62 grain green tip, I had data for all four barrel lengths. Okay, so when I accumulated the velocity data, I basically did 5-shot groups, and I shoot it about 10 to 15 feet back, so that the muzzle blast doesn't interfere with the chronograph reading. So 5-shot groups. I take the average. So on the 7.5 inch, velocity is 2150 feet per second. Okay, 11.5 inch, 2622, 16 inch, 2896, 18 inch, 3015. Okay, so this is in feet per second. So it's pretty easy to see here that the difference between 16 inch and 18 inch is not a whole lot. Okay, we're talking like maybe 100 feet per second. Okay, so there's not a big gap between 16 inches and 18 inches. The gap between the 11.5 inch and the 16 inch is more. Okay, and the gap between the 7.5 inch and the 11.5 inch is even more. Okay, so that's an interesting thing to consider. Okay, a lot of times if you say, hey, is it worth having an 18-inch barrel, over a 16-inch barrel? Well, just looking at this velocity data here, there's a very small increase in velocity. Okay, now there's two additional numbers that I was interested in. I wanted to know with these barrel lengths, at what distance does the velocity drop below 2,000 feet per second? All right, that's this column over here. And at what distance for each of those barrel lengths does the velocity drop below 1,100 feet per second? Okay, so with the first one, 2,000 feet per second, the reason why I picked that number is because I'm fairly certain that if the bullet, right, the 62 grain is going 2,000 feet per second, it is going fast enough to cause hydrostatic damage, right? Meaning it damages the surrounding tissue. Now that doesn't mean that if it's going a little bit slower, it's not going to damage surrounding tissue. But I had to pick a number, and I know that the AK round, which is going around 2,200 feet per second, is able to cause hydrostatic damage. So that's why I picked the 2,000, right? If you think that number should be lower, right? Like let's say if you think that number should be, I don't know, 1,800 feet per second or 1,500 feet per second, I mean, you can adjust these numbers here proportionally, okay? So with the 7.5 inch AR-15, when it gets to 100 yards, it has dropped just below the 2,000 feet per second, okay? With the 11.5 inch, that's going to happen at 300 yards, okay, where it drops below 2,000 feet per second. 16 inch, that's going to happen at 450 yards. 18 inch, that's going to happen at 500 yards, where the bullet velocity of the 62 grain green tip is going to drop below that 2,000 feet per second, okay? So the next number that I was interested in is at what distance for each of these barrel lengths here does the bullet go transonic, meaning that it starts going below the speed of sound. And the reason why that's important is when bullets go transonic, they start destabilizing. Okay, it doesn't mean that it happens immediately, but they start destabilizing. There's things that affect, like for example, how long the bullet is, how short it is, how fat it is, affect how well the bullet handles going transonic. Okay, so some bullets are going to handle going transonic better than others. Okay, so uh, basically, so what I did is I estimated, now also with the speed of sound, there's going to be a little bit of variation depending on elevation, temperature, air density. So that's going to affect what the speed of sound is. So I picked 1100. Okay, if you think it should be a little bit higher or a little bit lower, you can adjust these numbers proportionately. Okay, so with the 7.5 inch AR-15, in order for it to drop below that 1100 feet per second, it's going to do it at 650 yards. Okay, so 650 yards, 7.5 inch, it's dropping below 1100 feet per second. The 11.5 inch is going to do that at 850 yards, okay, where it starts going transonic. The 16 inch is going to do it at 950 yards. The 18 inch is going to do it at 1,000 yards, okay, where it starts going transonic. Okay, so the velocity numbers in this column here, that's basically off the chronograph. Okay, these numbers over here, what I did is I basically put these numbers into a ballistic calculator, right, and it basically told me what the velocity at distance should be. Okay, so this is a calculated number. It's an estimate. Okay, so factor that into your thoughts. But it's fair to say that at these distances, right, for these barrel lengths, somewhere in that ballpark, you're going to start going transonic. And the way you can use this is basically, this is good for comparing your 18 inch to your 16 inch to your 11.5 inch to your 7.5 inch. The first thing we can see that looking at this, right? So even with the 7.5 inch, I mean, it's supersonic, all the way out to 600 yards. Okay, I mean, even if the 650 yard number is not 100% correct, I mean, it's still going to be good out to 600. It's going to be good out to 600 yards. And I can tell you guys, just my practical shooting experience. I posted a video shooting my Palmetto 7.5 inch to 500 yards with 77 grain Sierra Match Kings, and I was able to get on target. I was able to get on I think it was a 20 inch target that I was shooting, and I was able to get hits on target. I don't remember exactly what the group was. I think it was 7 out of 10. I took 10 shots. 7 of them landed on a 20 inch target. And I say 20 inches because that's the length of basically a man's shoulders, more or less. Okay, so even with the 7.5 inch, if you got 77 grain Sierra Match Kings in there, you're going to get out to 500 yards. Okay, now with the 7.5 inch, I can also tell you guys that when I put in anything other than those 77 grain bullets, if I put in either 62 grains or 55 grains, the accuracy goes to shit. Okay, the groups open up to the point where I'm getting like 4 MOA, 5 MOA, 6 MOA. So the 7.5 inch seems to be very dependent, or at least from my experience, seems to be very dependent on those 77 grain bullets. The thing with the 7.5 inch barrel, remember the cartridge is about 2 inches long, so the bullet's only traveling about 5 inches in the barrel. Okay, so something to keep in mind with the 7.5 inch. But yeah, I posted a video. I've been out to 500 yards, 7 out of 10 hits on a man-sized target. So you can make it work. I mean, and it kind of makes sense. I mean, I was shooting at 500 yards. I probably could have pushed it a little bit further, probably to 600 yards. Chances are that if I got out to 650 yards, those bullets would really start, spinning out of control. Okay? So 11.5 inch. Now, nice thing about the 11.5 inch, 16 inch, and 18 inch, I have shot these out to 500 yards. But the thing is, I can do it with 77 grain bullets. I can also do it with 55 grain bullets. Okay, if I've got I'll use Wolf Gold. So if I use good target ammo, I can get out to 500 yards with 11.5 inches, 16 inches, or 18 inches, which is important to know because I really don't stockpile 77 grain bullets because they're expensive. I stockpile 55 grain bullets. Okay, so the 11.5 inch, no trouble shooting that to 500 yards. Based on this data, we could probably push out to close to 800 yards. I have not done it. Okay. With the 16 inch, according to this calculation, I should be able to get out to 950 yards. I have not done it, okay, but the bullet is going to be supersonic out to 900 yards at least, okay. With the 18 inch, okay, I have had that to 850 yards, and I posted a video. If you search my channel name and 850 yards, that video should come up where I'm shooting 850 yards on the 18 inch barrel. I was using 77 grade match grade bullets, okay, and I don't remember what the percentage hits were, but I got several hits, okay. So that was at 850 yards. So again, it shouldn't, based on this data, it kind of makes sense because we don't expect on 18 inch barrel, we don't expect the bullet to go transonic until 1,000 yards. So it seems like from the 16 inch barrel to the 18 inch barrel, we're only gaining an extra 50 yards. Okay? Now, here's the thing to know with when I was shooting this 18 inch barrel to 850 yards, the difficulty was in spotting the impacts. Okay, because out to 500 yards. The holdovers are very predictable. The wind adjustments aren't tremendous. Okay, so unless you got a strong wind, you pretty much, if you know your holdover, you can put it on the target and you'll hit it. I've done other videos like on what the holdover should be. With a with a 50-yard zero, you get a second zero pretty much at 200 yards. So basically, you put the red dot on the chest. At 300 yards, you put the dot on the face to drop them into your chest. At 400 yards, you put the dot, which is going to be big, on top of the head, okay, and that should drop them into the chest. And at 500 yards, you basically take the distance from the belt to the head, and basically that's your holdover, okay. So to 500 yards, the holdovers with 5.56 are pretty predictable. Now past 500 yards, it starts getting a little crazy. You pretty much have to have data. You pretty much have to have like an LPVO with a bullet drop compensator or mill lines where you know what your mill holes is. But yeah, it gets a lot harder once you get past. I've been out to 550 yards because again, I mean, okay, you're like, okay, 550 yards, I'll hold a little bit higher. But once you get to like 6, 7. 800 yards, that holdover is significant. So when I was shooting the 18 inch at 850 yards, I had no idea what my holdover was supposed to be. So I basically, and I had an LPVO, it had mill lines. I picked the number, I don't remember what it was. I started putting some hits. Now, the background that I was shooting in was dirt. So by shooting a bunch of rounds, I picked a target, not the paper target that I wanted to hit, but I picked some other target, right, a steel target, started putting a bunch of hits on that, and then at some point, I managed to spot the impact, okay? So once I spotted the impact on my mill grid, I'm like, aha, that's what my holdover is, okay? So I took that dot, right, where it impacted, moved that to the target, took a couple more shots, and I saw that now I was pretty much impacting either on the target or right next to it. And I pick a small target, something that's small, not something that's huge, so that I can see the impacts around it. Because now I know exactly where I'm looking. Okay, I know exactly where I'm expecting those impacts to be. Once I confirm that that's my hold, right, for elevation and for any wind that might have been at that moment, took out the mag that was in it. I took another magazine that has 9 rounds in it. put that in, switch over to the paper target, and take 10 shots fairly, as quickly as I can while having a good hold. The reason is I want to take those shots as quickly as I can before the wind has a chance to change on me. Okay, and that's how I was able to get the 18-inch 5.56 with 77 grains to give me hits on a 20-inch target at 850 yards. Okay, that's what you got to do. So the issue, I mean the 18-inch will get out there. It'll get out to close to, if not exactly 1,000 yards, it'll get close to 1,000 yards. Okay, that 16-inch will get you close to 950 yards. The problem is spotting the impacts, and also keep in mind at these distances, the bullets have lost a lot of energy. So if you're shooting at dirt, let's say at 300 yards or 400 yards or 500 yards, there's going to be a bigger splash. The impacts at 850 yards, I mean, they're going to be a lot lighter. Okay, basically you're sending, your 5.56 at that point is basically a 22 long rifle. Okay, that's how much energy you're delivering down there. Now, you might say, okay, what's the point of shooting somebody at 850 yards, with the energy of a 22? Okay, so first of all, here's my line of thinking on that. Inside of 200 yards, you have to incapacitate, right? The reason is because if you wound somebody, 200 yards and in, what they're going to probably calculate is that, hey, their best chance of survival is to continue to press the attack forward and defeat you. Because if they turn around and try to run away at 200 yards, they're thinking that you might shoot them in the back. Okay. However, if you wound somebody right at 300 yards or further, okay, what they're probably going to calculate is that their best chance of survival is to get out of there rather than try to charge forward. Okay, so at 850 yards, right, if you can get on target and make hits on target, I mean, yes, you're putting little 22 holes, but if you wound somebody, right, they're not going to charge 800 yards forward to try and defeat you. If you wound them at 800 yards, they're going to get out of there. They're going to leave. Okay, so 200 yards and out, wounding somebody is very effective. Okay, 200 yards and in, you have to really incapacitate, because if you wound them, they're going to probably continue to charge forward and try to defeat you, because that's probably what their best chance of surviving is. Okay. So anyway, I wanted to share this information with you guys. So this column over here, the muzzle velocities, I measured that in my chronograph, right? 5-shot groups, okay? And then these numbers over here, what I did is I took these numbers, I put them into the ballistic calculator, and that calculated basically gave me a chart, and I was able to pick out at what yardage the velocity falls, in this case below 2,000 feet per second, and in this case at what yardage the velocity falls below 1,100 feet per second. Okay. So anyway, drop some comments. Yeah, my thoughts on this, especially like with the 11.5 inch. I mean, that's a very practical rifle. I mean, it's got, you're doing you still got 2,000 feet per second velocity out to 300 yards, and you're still supersonic all the way out to 850 yards. So that's a pretty short, convenient package. And the thing I like about the 11.5 inch is that it's short enough and light enough that I can load it up with bipod, with light, with a magnifier, and the gun doesn't get front heavy. Okay, if you try to put all that stuff on the 16 inch, and especially on my 18 inch, right? I mean, on my 18 inch, I just put the bipod on there and nothing else, no lights, nothing, because it gets too front heavy. Okay, so the 11.5 inch to me is like your do-it-all gun, because it can easily get you out to 500 yards. Again, I posted the videos doing that, and you don't even have to use 77 grain bullets. You can use your good target ammo. It will get you out to 500 yards. And you can load up with the light, with the bipod, with the flip-up sights, with the magnifier. The red dot that I have on it It has an ACSS red dot, which has a built-in bullet drop compensator, which will get me all the way out to 600 yards. Okay, so I've done a couple of videos on that rifle, the 11.5 inch. If you look up my channel name and One Gun to Rule Them All, you'll find that video where I talk to you guys about that rifle. Okay, so drop some comments. Let me know what you guys think. I'll talk to you soon.